Brought to you courtesy Ibis Premium Grade Flour. Introducing the new look of inspiration. Say hello to the all-new Ibis Baker's Flour, specially crafted for your finest creations and home baking moments. Now alongside your trusted Ibis all-purpose flour, both with a fresh new look. Plus, we're excited to introduce a brand new 5 kg size, more of the quality you love. Whether you're kneading, mixing or creating, do it with a brand that brings tradition to your table. Ibis, a tradition of excellence.
Welcome to the Leaders Who Built Our Nation, presented by the Trinidad Express newspapers. I'm Dominic Kalipersad. In this 5-part podcast series, we trace Trinidad and Tobago's evolution through the vision and leadership of those who held our highest offices. Today, in episode 1, we revisit the era of our first Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, and the formation of our independent nation.
That at a few minutes to midnight on the 30th of August 1962, Her Royal Highness, as the representative of the Queen, witnessed the birth of our nation, the 15th member of the Commonwealth. Representatives from over 50 nations were present when the Union Jack was lowered, marking the end of alien rule. On the stroke of midnight, our own national flag, red, white and black, rose gracefully to the top, marking the attainment of freedom. Heads of religious bodies offered prayers to God to guide the new nation faithfully in the paths of democracy and peace. There was rejoicing among the people gathered in the University of Woodford Square that freedom had come, that the soil which their ancestors from many lands and of divers races had watered with their blood and sweat and tears had become their own to shape and to fashion. The rejoicing was marked by dignified restraint in keeping with the call to discipline by the Prime Minister, who in 6 brief years had led his people from colonialism to nationhood.
With us is Dr. Winston Dookeran. retired professor of practice who was there at the time of independence. Dr. Dookeran, in 1962, you were a young man just out of university and you got your first job at the office of the Prime Minister. So you were there at the start of the economic plan for Trinidad and Tobago, I presume. What was the politics of the time like?
Well, it was a moment of expectations, the birth of a nation. As young citizens of our country, we felt a sense of pride that a flag will be raised in the nations of the world that will reflect Trinidad and Tobago. We felt a pride and expectations about a bright future ahead of us.
And what set Dr. Eric Williams apart from the rest at that time?
He came as a scholar in the first instance and was able to locate our country in the context of the history of the past and the fortunes that we expect in the future. That was his first introduction, from my point of view, of Dr. Eric Williams. Subsequently, he became a person who understood the politics of constitutional transition, which was where we were at the time. And he conducted all the various negotiations in that context. I was very much interested in what happened there and thereafter in terms of setting the constitutional framework for a new nation of Trinidad and Tobago.
I call upon all citizens to dedicate themselves on this our Independence Day. This is what I meant when I gave the nation as its slogan for all time: discipline, production, tolerance. Our national flag belongs to all of us. Our national coat of arms with our national birds inscribed therein is the sacred trust of all our citizens. So it is today. Please, I urge you, let it always be so. Let us always be able to say with the psalmist, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity."
And what was the role of the opposition voices at the time?
Well, I remember meeting Dr. Dominic Kalipersad in London while I was a student there. And he gave me a perspective on his role and his association with Dr. Eric Williams. It is something that is not well understood or remembered by the people of this country. But there were two men or two scholars, one who was very sound in the field of power, in the field of constitution, and the other one in the field of science and in the field of development. They could have worked together, and I think they had planned to work together. And that combination at that time would have been good for our country. Our political situation did not make it possible, and therefore we ended up really with the opposition playing a role of providing a voice but not participating in the national development.
And to the general public, what was the emotion at the time? Was it just a romantic idea of breaking ties with Britain, or did they have a real sense of the impact it would have on their lives and their future?
My recollection is that it was much less about breaking ties with Britain. In fact, there was a strong sentiment of the virtue of that relationship. What was really more important is that we were now going to be in charge of our own destiny. And therefore we're going to create our own future and our own governance for the future. And that is really what inspired the people of the country.
Do you think that Dr. Eric Williams really worked towards inspiring the nation for racial harmony?
There was an interesting debate that took place at the time between Don Basil Matthews and Dr. Eric Williams. Both of them were scholars in their own right. Don Basil Matthews was really a political sociologist. Eric Williams was really a scholar in the field of constitutions and power. I have always argued that because of their different perspectives, the concept of nation building differed. Williams was more interested in the power structure of the nation. Don Basil Matthews was saying, no, we need to develop a nation in which the society becomes the driving force. And therefore, as a political sociologist, he was pursuing a different perspective. It is a debate that is well known, and the debate scholars have in fact participated in more recently in terms of the two different visions. To that extent, Dr. Williams was really a man more of the power issues that we are facing. And the understanding of the political sociology of the country eluded him for many years.
The first of 12 children, he was the son of Thomas and Eliza Williams. A renowned scholar, Williams' first major academic achievement was winning the coveted college exhibition to gain a secondary school education at Queen's Royal College. Later, he won the Ireland Scholarship and left for Oxford, where he attained first-class honors in history, followed by a doctorate in philosophy. In 1939, he left England to work at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where he spent 16 years teaching and studying West Indian history and West Indian affairs. Williams was also associated with the Anglo-American Caribbean Commission until 1955, when his contract was not renewed. Perceiving this as discrimination, he engaged in open conflict with the colonial rulers. A turning point in his career, this set the stage for the integral role he played in founding the first effective political party in Trinidad and Tobago.
Introducing the new look of inspiration. Say hello to the all-new Ibis Baker's flour, specially crafted for your finest creations and home baking moments. Now alongside your trusted Ibis all-purpose flour, both with a fresh new look. Plus, we're excited to introduce a brand new 5 kilogram size, more of the quality you love. Whether you're kneading, mixing or creating, do it with a brand that brings tradition to your table. Ibis, a tradition of excellence.
It's Extra Foods Plenty for 20 60th anniversary savings. Gala apples 10 for $20. Extra Value powdered soap 2 for $20. Brunswick tuna chunks 2 cans for $20. Quaylo's fresh big hops 2 packs for $20. Maidabel hash brown patties 10 pack $20. Quavers carrots 3 packs for $20. Jordan almonds 4 packs for $20. Cold soft drinks 10 for $20, and so much more. Plus, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for even more specials. Extra Foods, always extra for less.
Welcome back. In the next segment, we examine the growing pains of a young republic and the steady transition of power.
The launch of the People's National Movement in January 1956 resulted in a quiet revolution without bloodshed that transcended the boundaries of race and class. Williams and the PNM won their first mandate in 1956, and under his stewardship and beyond, the party never lost an election for 3 decades.
So what were some of Dr. Williams' shortcomings?
I think essentially he was a leader who inspired the nation. I think he was a leader who asked us to raise our ambition. I think he was a leader who was able to tell us that there was a great virtue in being in charge of our own destiny. I think he was able to tell us and tell the nation and the young people that the world ahead is one that you will create and that you must play the part. And his famous statement that the future is in the book bags of our children represents that kind of thinking. I think when it came to the issue of economic governance and the issue of economic development, he did not seem to be as comfortable in the area of development. And this is why I felt that the synthesis that could have developed between himself and Dr. Dominic Kalipersad, who was more a development scientific type of person, would have helped us at that time. He therefore did not understood the issues of development in the same way in which he understood the issues of nationalism, the issues of setting the values of the nation, and he did a tremendous job in that respect.
So reinforce for me 3 of Dr. Eric Williams's primary achievements.
I think in retrospect, his achievement in introducing education as a main driver for economic development will never be forgotten. There are a lot of debate as to whether or not the quality of that education was sufficient, but notwithstanding that debate, which is a continuous debate, he did introduce that when at a time when education was not seen as a main driver for economic change and for development. That's one area. The other area is that I think he introduced a sense of stability for Trinidad and Tobago as a nation, in the sense that he understood the historical situation in which we are placed, and he was able to chart a position that gave us an independent voice, but also understand the geopolitics of the time. And therefore, in issues like Venezuela, and issues of that nature, he was able to chart a good course between the colonial powers of the time and the new nations of the world.
In 1962, we established ourselves as independent of Britain. But psychologically, when did we ever truly become a nation?
We are still in the process of becoming a nation. It has been many years since then, and we have not been able to develop that psychic of one nation concept. It has really dominated our political agenda for all these years. And I guess it will never really be a nation in the sense in which you have defined a nation.
So what do we need to do to be a nation?
Well, I don't think I can answer that question directly, except to say that there will come a time the Trinidadians and Tobagoans tend to be far more nationalistic outside of Trinidad than they are inside of Trinidad. So there is a concept of nationhood in the country. Perhaps, within our borders, we tend to be less tolerant of the divisions in the society than we are when we are outside this country. I have seen that. I've studied in different parts of the world for lengths of time, and I've always seen the communities abroad are far more cohesive and far more nationalistic than when I live here, which I've lived for all my life, really, to be. But I don't think nationalism is something that we could define. I think there is a sense of loyalty to the country. The best expression of that in my lifetime was during the 1990 events, when the society at large rose to the occasion, and the resilience of society was displayed in full force in order to deal with that issue from a societal perspective.
So we've experienced a number of pivotal moments. You mentioned 1990, there was also 1970.
From 1968 to 1970, as the Black Power movement gained momentum, Williams faced his biggest challenge.
The 1970 event has to be seen in its national, regional, and international context. It was certainly part of a worldwide movement of students, starting in Berkeley, California, in Paris, in New York, in Ithaca, where I was a student. It was a revolt of a generation who had looked forward to independence and who had felt that all of the things that they dreamt about, all of the things that they assumed would be achieved, it was just not happening, and that the older generation had sold us out.
So in 1976, we became a republic. The role of the Governor General was abolished, and we installed our first president, Sir Ellis Clarke. What actions did he take that really made a difference?
Well, I think Sir Ellis Clarke became a leader who had gained his reputation for ensuring that Trinidad and Tobago remains a firmly democratic society. And in that sense, he made a big contribution, becoming the first president under the Republican status.
The new president graciously received the congratulations of other government ministers and the delighted guests. The new republic was ushered in on August 1st, 1976, and the previous symbols representing our association with the British Crown must be removed, being replaced by the new symbols representing our new Republican status.
But the Republican status did not really fundamentally change the psyche of the people of the country. It was an evolution of a constitutional nature. And as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Williams himself was very strong on constitutional change.
But the new constitution still remains some old colonial British law. Why is that?
Because we have never accepted in the country a process by which we can actually change our constitution in terms of the structures that entail and hold power. We may have found the basic principles and premises of constitution have been retained. And as we indicated in our conversation earlier, that was part of the early period in the 1960s.
You know, in our existence since pre-independence, independence, republicanism, we've had some major cultural leaders, Beryl McBurney, Mangal Patasar, the Mighty Sparrow. How would you describe our cultural development? What are the big cultural moments?
The cultural leaders reflected the conscience of the nation at all times. They reflected what the people were thinking and what they believed in. Their input, therefore, in the discourse of the country was something that should be acknowledged and accepted. Or Calypsonians, or different manifestation of the cultural leadership has really reflected what the people were. And the Constitution does not really take into consideration that.
And then we eventually named the steel pan our national instrument. What does that mean to us?
Well, the steel band was in fact the pride of Trinidad and Tobago. It is claimed origin of it. I know there's a little debate about that, but it is really a musical instrument that has been accepted worldwide as an innovative instrument for the creation of music. And we are proud that that is so.
How can we use our cultural art forms, our strength in our cultural art forms, to help us to grow, to be a better people?
We need, therefore, to move away from the concept of entitlement, which is what has determined the state role in culture, where people have to be given funds to support their particular movement, to a movement of culture and business opportunities. I think it's an unexplored area and one that can, in fact, yield to great success, given what I said earlier, that we are proud of being a country of many parts of the world, and therefore our culture can become a showpiece and an economic powerhouse.
Our most famous traditional festival is Carnival, celebrated annually on the 2 days before Ash Wednesday. Originating in Spanish times, it has no resemblance to European or other carnivals. Among its distinguishing features are color, costume presentation, and spontaneity, fired by our two unique art forms, the steel band and the calypso.
Culturally, this was an age of Kitchener, Sparrow, and a burgeoning pride in calypso, steel pan, and carnival as national symbols? And socially, what were the major movements stirring at the time?
Introducing the new look of inspiration. Say hello to the all-new Ibis Baker's flour, specially crafted for your finest creations and home baking moments. Now alongside your trusted Ibis all-purpose flour, both with a fresh new look. Plus, we're excited to introduce a brand new 5 kilogram size, more of the quality you love. Whether you're kneading, mixing or creating, do it with a brand that brings tradition to your table. Ibis, a tradition of excellence.
It's Extra Foods Plenty for 26th anniversary savings. Gala apples 10 for $20. Extra value powdered soap 2 for $20. Brunswick tuna chunks 2 cans for $20. Quaylo's fresh big hops 2 packs for $20. Midable hash brown patties 10 pack $20. Quavers carrots 3 packs for $20. Jordan almonds 4 packs for $20. Cold soft drinks 10 for $20, and so much more. Plus, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for even more specials. Extra Foods, always extra for less.
The years after independence were filled with challenges: economic development, cultural identity, and social change. How did Dr. Eric Williams's final years shape his legacy?
Well, Dr. Williams was the Prime Minister of this country for 30 years. And I think his legacy was determined by his Prime Ministership and leader of this country for that period of time. At the very end, there was a feeling of disillusionment. And when he demitted office, and Mr. Chambers, who was a very honorable individual, succeeded him, I remember he asking the electorate that the time has come that those things that are right in this country must be kept right, and those things that are wrong in this country must be put right. It was an admission that many things were not right at the end of Williams' career. And of course, that became the next mantra for development. So his legacy at the end of his career cannot be isolated from his legacy for his entire period, in my view. At the end, it was a sort of tired Eric Williams, who had tried everything that he could have tried, and he felt a sense of, I would say, a little disillusionment, particularly after the events of 1970.
In my view, or what I know of him, he was very simple. Contrary to attempts to mystify him, Dr. Williams was a normal human being, very articulate, very intelligent, very analytical. And I don't think he was ever attracted, from my experience with him, to the finer things in life. He lived a very simple life.
The last note that I wrote to him was on the Friday before he died on Sunday. I had written a note to him saying, "Dear Bill, I promised Ermentrude a shopping trip to Miami. As everything seems quiet, I propose to go on a week from that date. If there isn't anything that you think important, I'll be leaving so-and-so." I sent that to his home on Friday after lunch. I don't know if he ever read it, and he died on the Sunday.
To the people of Trinidad and Tobago, he is the father of the nation.
We will have to say that Williams was the father of the nation. It does not mean that he was the person, he was the only person who made significant contributions. That would not be true.
Under the leadership of Dr. Williams, Trinidad and Tobago was transformed from a struggling colony to an independent and a prosperous nation. On March 29, 1981, the nation mourned Dr. Williams' death. As his body lay in state in the rotunda of the Red House, an estimated 200,000 persons filed past to pay their last respects.
But talk to me about the era of George Chambers.
He had a difficult job. the economy was in decline. He had to ensure that he can bring it forward. The economic situation of which we spoke about, where the external world was influencing our economic fortunes here, was the key issue. At the time, I myself entered politics in this country during Mr. Chambers. It was a role in which he had to try and hold the country together economically to start with. Of course, he tried as much as he can, but the price of oil and gas, the point we raised earlier, about having to depend our economic destiny on forces outside our control, he had to face up to that. But I think he himself was able to keep a steady hand on a difficult set of challenges during his period.
George Chambers became the captain of a sinking ship. He was no Eric Williams, but he set out to pull the country together. The people gave him a commanding mandate in 1981 to do the job, but the task was beyond him.
Tell me 3 things that we should be proud of as a nation since we became independent.
Thank you. Very good question, and I think the first thing that comes to mind that Trinidad and Tobago is a country that people feel a sense of comfort to call themselves citizens of this country because of the values in the governance of this country. Whether these values are upheld or not upheld becomes a continuing political debate. But the fact is that we have set the right values. In the early days, I remember well the discussion that took place in Marlborough House for the transition of power from the colonial London to Trinidad and Tobago. Men like Ellis Clark, men like Tajmul Hussain were able to put together a constitution that has served us well, although we may find it's not as flexible as it should be, particularly in the electoral side of it, but certainly it has been very solid constitution. It has served the nation very well. We should be proud of that. We should be proud of the fact that we have maintained a democratic society in spite of all the ups and downs. And when we consider what's happened in the rest of the world, I think we should be very proud of that. And I think we continue to feel proud of that. So there are many things that Eric Williams set the foundations for. And we must give credit to where credit is due. And had it not been for his sense of understanding of history, for his sense of understanding of constitutions, for his sense of understanding of the process of power and the practice of power, I think we would have not been in such a comfortable place.
And what are 3 challenges that we need to overcome?
Well, we have to overcome, in the context of the independence period, a sense of becoming more confident of our economic destiny. We have remained always dependent on a destiny that is determined by forces way outside our ability to control. And we have to become more confident about changing that. That's not an easy task, but it's a task that I think is doable. In that sense, I myself was involved subsequently in many aspects of that. But this is not about that. Today is about the foundation that was laid. And the plans that we spoke about earlier was an attempt to do just that.
You know, sometimes there are things we take for granted, like as you said, or freedom of speech and all those things. When you look at the flag, when we look at the flag, the national flag, what should we be thinking?
We should be thinking that the flag represents a small nation that is a reflection of the rest of the world. Our peoples have come from every part of the world. The historical forces of the past created the conditions for Trinidad and Tobago to be what it is. And the flag represents that. It is really a source of pride that we have people from Asia, people from Africa, people from China, people from the Middle East, people from Britain, people from the United Kingdom, from the United States, and people within recent times from Latin America, all living in this island of Trinidad and Tobago. So it represents the world living together. And I think that's an experience that the world understands, and we should be proud of that.
Thank you, Dr. Dookeran.
Thank you.
Introducing the new look of inspiration. Say hello to the all-new Ibis Baker's flour, specially crafted for your finest creations and home baking moments. Now alongside your trusted Ibis all-purpose flour, both with a fresh new look. Plus, we're excited to introduce a brand new 5 kilogram size, more of the quality you love. Whether you're kneading, mixing or creating, do it with a brand that brings tradition to your table. Ibis, a tradition of excellence.
The foundations of our nation were laid in the first 2 decades through vision, determination, and sacrifice. Next time, we examine a turbulent period in our democracy, from Chambers to Robertson, and the rise of Patrick Manning. I'm Dominic Kalipersad. Join us again for the leaders who built our nation.